So, ladies and gentlemen, now we are slowly coming to an end of this year's SME Assembly. We are at the closing session. I hope you all agree that it has been some very busy 36 hours, but hopefully also very stimulating for you participants. We have had contributions from all over Europe, and it's really been a pleasure moderating everything. So the purpose of this session is just to basically send you off with a few concrete ideas as to how SMEs can be supported in these really uncertain times, and in order to achieve a more competitive and independent European economy. So we have a few keynote speakers, very short keynotes though, and they are going to share their highlights of the assembly, and they're going to set out their top priorities for the years to come. But first, it's my great pleasure to introduce the winner of the Youth Startup competition. You just met him, Gonzalo Ribeiro. He will give us just a very few words on what he thinks that the startup community needs in order to grow. Gonzalo, the floor is yours. And congratulations.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you once again for listening to me. I will start by answering to the question, what does a startup need? And I will talk about our particular case. So this started as a project 2 years ago, and the thing that we always need, especially as we are dealing with something with deep tech, is funding. And funding, for instance, in Europe, it's about 10% of what is invested in venture capital, whereas in the United States and China is 50 and 40% respectively. Without funding, even though we have a good idea, we cannot compete sometimes with the other markets, simply because they can offer higher salaries and they can move fast. But also, Europe has a unique environment as students and researchers are well equipped. They are all recognized. For instance, in particle physics, where I'm from, we are leading in this field. We have CERN in Switzerland. This has come up with lots of innovations, and it's part of our job to find them and put them in the market. So if I were to make a suggestion, it would be to have a more connected environment between universities, public grants, and the private sector. Because sometimes researchers, as I, lack the competence to do entrepreneurship, because we have a technical profile. We are used to make decisions like with rationality. We are not used to take human into consideration sometimes. And this is something that we welcome, and the multidisciplinary work would be really nice. And this is something that the European Union should provide as well. If we are trying to do something, we should do it together as well. Because with a team, we move faster. It may be slow at first, but we reach to a higher ground. So thank you very much. I am more than welcome to hear all of you as well. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much again, Gonzalo, and all the best of luck with your venture in the future. So now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Sandra Parthy. She is president of the Employers Group of European Economic and Social Committee, and she will give her analysis and recommendations on the challenges of boosting SME competitiveness over the next 4 years. Welcome, Sandra.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much for the friendly invitation and introduction. And thank you for the opportunity to address this assembly on behalf of the European Economic and Social Committee in my role as the president of the Employers Group, which is representing businesses, industry and employer associations from all over the EU, and a number of which you have actually heard during various panels during this assembly. So my highlights and my takeaways. SMEs are very much alive and kicking. In fact, employment in the SME sector has steadily grown since the pandemic. In particular, micro-enterprises have shown a remarkable resilience to economic shocks. So all peachy, right? Well, this assembly, with all the contributions, the real life and the best practice examples, the very engagement of entrepreneurs and their representatives here in the exchanges demonstrated that Europe's SMEs continue to innovate, to adapt with remarkable creativity, be it in biotech startups, be it using AI in companies, and also young people taking up the challenge of being an entrepreneur. So there's reason for optimism. However, there is no denying that EU economic power in the world has persistently declined, and our strategic position has been seriously weakened by geopolitical tensions, as well as high energy prices, the regulatory burden, and the labor shortages, and also the access to finance. So despite the optimism, the reality is that SMEs continue to face some of the toughest political challenges today, navigating complex regulations that keep changing, limited access to finance, and the race to digitalize and decarbonize. The reality is also that the number of leading innovators is decreasing compared to the United States, and the share of EU firms among the top R&D companies has dropped significantly. This transatlantic gap is particularly wide when it comes to software development, where US companies account for 75% of the global total. The EU has 6%. So we have heard over the past days how SMEs face double and triple legislative requirements and sanctions as a result of the additional wave of regulation and existing requirements, regardless of pledges of burden reduction, of making things easier and more accessible for them. So in order to preserve the support and the optimism for the European project, social cohesion and wealth, we need to regain the perspective of growth for companies and citizens across Europe. We cannot afford to lose the entrepreneurs to the US, the Arab world, or elsewhere. They are the backbone of our economy, and this economy is the basis for our way of life. The message from SMEs in this assembly to politicians, therefore, is deliver on reducing administrative burden to make growth simpler, faster, and fairer for small businesses. Tear down the barriers and give us a properly functioning single market. And do not overpromise and underdeliver. As every entrepreneur knows, raising expectations and then disappointing is the surest way to create frustration and resentment amongst your clients and customers. SMEs are still here and holding their own, but wishing for startups to stay in the EU is not enough. The role of SMEs and entrepreneurs is to deliver goods and services, to be innovative and creative, and they are doing their part. The role for politicians is to enable them to do that. So please live up to that end of the bargain. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandra, for these important takeaways. And please take a seat, because in a minute we'll take a few questions from the floor. But first, we need more panelists on the stage. So I'd like to invite Andreas Hauptmann to the stage. He is SME envoy for Denmark, and he will reflect on the achievements made by the Danish presidency in order to move competitiveness for the SMEs ahead. Welcome, Andreas.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's never easy to condense a couple of days, and I don't even recall the number of workshops being done in the last few days. Instead, I will just share a few highlights from me as being an envoy and part of hosting this year's event. I think we have explored both the challenges and opportunities for SMEs in the last couple of days, and they have underlined for me the truly indispensable role of SMEs in the economy and in the EU as a whole. I think I also take with me that the situation for SMEs are dire at the moment, and there is a very, very concrete call to action for actually making it easier to be an SME in today's EU. I was also reminded, both during the Schumpeter lecture and also the awards yesterday, that what it means to be an entrepreneur is very many different things. We have a very long range of what we call entrepreneurship in the EU, and we should probably keep it that way. And there's a very big difference of being an everyday entrepreneur or being an informal entrepreneur and being helped to be legit, as was one of the success stories in France, to be a high-flying growth SME that's ready to embark on all of the single market and even beyond. So I think we need to keep both pictures in our head at the same time moving forward. And still, they also share quite a few of the challenges. Access to finance was already mentioned. I think I take with me also that even due to all these challenges, we still have a very, very positive energy from the entrepreneurs we are seeing, that they still believe that you can make the digital and green transition a pathway to growth and competitiveness for them. We need to keep that in our minds as well. But what I take with me the most is also maybe a part of what Sandra mentioned, so we agree on that, is that we need to keep focus on reducing the burdens, and we need to do it very, very fast. We need to make everyday life easier in a way that keeps the SMEs believing that they have a chance on this continent. We need to simplify the regulation. That's a first step. I also firmly believe that even though we simplify, we need a lot of regulation in order to keep a single market and not 27 diverse markets across the EU. So we need to find a way to make the single market work, and we need to find a way to work with data that's easy to handle for SMEs. And sometimes this notion about digitizing, automating can be an abstract course for action, but it's very, very concrete, helping SMEs and the everyday entrepreneurs actually doing the bookkeeping late at night, making it easier to be sure that the books are right. Also, when the public authorities shows up and will know what you are doing. And then in the end, I will just say we need to keep both pictures, both the everyday entrepreneurs and the high-flowing growth SMEs in our heads. We also need to keep both pictures in our head of SMEs facing dire challenges and the need for us to act right now, but also to keep a positive mind, saying there's still a lot of great ideas out there. There's a lot of young people who actually have ideas and have still a belief that they can be able to change the world. We need to support them in that journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andreas, for these uplifting and also very kind words. And then let's get our last panelist on the floors. I would like to invite Uti Slotboom. She's Director of Supply Chain and Business Analysis at DG Grow, and she will present her conclusions of this year's assembly. Welcome, Uti.
Thank you. Thank you. It is difficult to imagine that we are already reaching the end. We have had a very rich program. We have covered a huge amount of topics, a lot of clicks, and I'm still wondering who is getting the prize, which might have something to do with chocolates. We have discussed digitalization, standardization, SME internationalization, skills, intellectual property, sustainability. It has been a very rich event, and we have got, speaking for the European Commission, we have got a lot of good policy advice, hints, comments for our work, and I hope that every participant can take some of the new things home, things you maybe had not realized before. Just to pick a few things from the policy discussions, if there was a topic that came up in nearly every workshop or panel, it was the regulatory burden. It was the need to simplify, reduce the burden on companies so that they can put their resources on productive work and not on administrative burdens. Of course, the European Commission has started this work. The omnibuses which we have presented this year will amount to more than 8 billion of annual savings to companies, but this is only the beginning. And the member states are invited to run a similar exercise in their countries. A second quote that I heard in so many discussions, the report of Mario Draghi and his report on competitiveness. We need more innovation. We need a huge amount of new investments. We have to find the funds for that. We have to be more competitive. Thirdly, the single market. Our data show that small businesses which sell or operate outside their home country, in nearly all the cases, expand their operations to another EU member state, which shows that the single market does work. It is a lot easier to operate in another country in the single market than in a third country. But much more can be done. We have launched a single market strategy. We have a specific exercise ongoing where we look at single market barriers to SMEs, and this will continue. But then I wanted to go to the fourth and final theme which I picked, which is really very much for me the symbol of this year's assembly. Are there hidden things? Have we really looked as policymakers at the right things? Are there things we don't see? And this, of course, started with a Schumpeter lecture. Professor Welter saying that we too often tend to focus on the few high-growth, high-tech scale-ups, and we forget the very large number of everyday entrepreneurs, as she put it. And she said, don't look at what may be a fairy tale, but look at what is the great number of companies which generate a lot of local value added and are important in their local communities. That comparison somehow also reminded me of our lawmaking approach, where very often laws are written for companies and then there is a derogation for small businesses. And knowing that if you look at staff numbers, 99.9% of companies are small businesses or medium-sized businesses. The question is, are we doing the right job in taking as a standard case the 0.1 and then giving a derogation to the very large mass? So the symbol for me of this assembly has really been, is there a hidden economy somewhere there, or at least is the real economy somehow below our radar screen, and do we need to also look at things other than the things that we have looked at so far? I also heard in the many discussions I had that micro companies very often are hidden or don't fall into the focus of policymakers because of their small size. We had a workshop on hidden champions, which are the mid-caps, where one of the panelists said that mid-caps which are successful are often hidden because they only deliver to a small number of other companies and the consumers don't know them. So there are a lot of things which we have to keep in our minds. It's not only the few big successes of which we read in the newspapers, but it is really the large quantity of SMEs out there. I wanted to close by quoting 3 people who spoke in the SME performance workshop. There was a person representing, in this case, Danish industry, who said that Europe certainly is the right place to do business. We have a lot of challenges, but there is a business case in Europe. And he said he had been elected as the most optimist person in Denmark this year. Then There was a second person who said, look, I have seen the data that you have shown to us, and since everything is so bad, I can't understand why the data are not even much worse than they are, because there is careful optimism in the corporate sector. And then he introduced himself as a lobbyist, and he said that a job of a lobbyist is to complain about everything. And then we had the third person who said that her origins were outside the European Union, who said that sometimes many of us are blind and we don't see the good things and the assets that we have, like the very strong research base. We have seen a lot of companies now. We have seen the great youth startups. We have seen the small and mid caps, which were awarded yesterday. And what I believe all these successful companies have in common is having their feet on the ground, seeing what the challenges are and what the difficulties are, but also seeing the great potential that there is and being optimistic in looking forward. So really combining the three statements that I quoted. So with this, I would like to thank our Danish hosts, all the speakers, all the moderators, all the participants for your active participation, the organizing team, and of course the companies which were present. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Uti, and thanks for joining us here in the panel. So now we have time for just a few questions from the audience, and this is really a great opportunity. You can ask us anything. Preferably related to the SME environment. And I think that the first question comes from one of the finalists of the European SME Week Young Journalist Challenge in 25. And she's called Anna Navarro-Bullo. Anna, where do we have you? Ah, you're right there. Okay, hang on a second. We'll have a mic for you.
Hi, thank you so much for the conclusion. Take notes. My question would be, how can member states, in the presence of a possible non-agreement over the omnibus package, how could member states design and implement national simplification measures that provide relief to SMEs while safeguarding the integrity of the single market? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in particular you'd like to answer the question, or?
Maybe Uti?
Okay, maybe Uti. Yeah. Good. Uti, go ahead.
No, I'm terribly happy about this question, because usually when we talk about barriers and administrative burdens, everybody is asking whether the Commission is not doing more. So once asking what the member states can do, I think it's really putting your finger on the right place. Companies very often, when they have administrative burdens, they do not necessarily know who is behind, whether it is the implementation of an EU directive or whether it is a national rule, an administrative practice of the local community. We have tried in the Commission, next to doing our own homework and simplifying EU rules, we have put together barriers at member state level under the heading of Terrible 10. And we are really looking at member state level. We are collecting feedback from companies, and in the different fora that we have where we discuss with the member states, we are also trying to expose this information and ask them to do more, because there is so much which is an administrative burden on companies that originates from the national, regional or local level. And it can be an administrative practice, slow permitting process, other things. So there really is a lot to do, and I hope that everybody who is here from the member states takes this message home.
Yeah. So Andreas, clearly this is an issue in Denmark as well. Would you like a go on that question as well?
Well, it's definitely a shared effort to actually reduce burdens, so it's getting easier to be a business. And I think even if we don't have a simplification at the EU level, there's still much we can do nationally in each of the member states. That said, I think we have calculated that 70% of the Danish laws regarding business originates from EU. So of course the what we do at EU level matters, but we still have a lot of wiggle room from the EU regulation and putting it into force in our member states. And we have authorities that need to be brave and bold, and often also when they interpret the legal text, there is leeway, because it's often a compromise, so we can make it easier in the implementation phase if we dare go to the borders of the legal text that we all have agreed upon.
Okay. So maybe a bit of, you can challenge the borders there. Okay, Sandra, just a quick go.
Just a quick go, indeed. Member states could simply stop to gold plate for the European rules, so that would already be helpful to not add to what has been decided on the European level. That would be one way forward. We are actually having in the ESC a new sort of observatory that deals with the single market enforcement issues, and there we will also have to look at the barriers, collect some concrete examples from the member state level on where the member states are putting up new barriers beyond what is actually required at the European level. And this, I think, is also something that should be very helpful to member states to actually also see to implement some European legislation can be done and is done very differently from one to the other. And maybe you look around a bit and take the best practice example, the least burdensome sort of approach to implement European legislation, and then use this everywhere.
Okay, thank you. Right, okay, there's a question over here. So please introduce yourself and maybe also for whom the question is aimed.
My name is Andreas Lutz from Munich, founders and self-employed people, so I'm talking for micro entrepreneurs. My question is, what could and should be done to give everyday entrepreneurs higher visibility at future SME assemblies?
Uti, I guess that ends with you as well.
I think it's a great idea. We have not yet drafted the program of next year's assembly, so the suggestions are very welcome. And indeed, micro companies were one of the examples that I mentioned under the different types of companies which may have gone too much under our radar screen, because in the SME segment, micro companies create the most employment. Their jobs are growing faster than the other sectors. They are a very dynamic sector and they are very important locally. So what can be done is to organize a discussion, but then of course to do something to help micro companies, it cannot be one workshop, but we really have to see whether this is an area where the Commission could do more and not get it lost under the radar screen of looking at fairy tales, as others put it. So to be reflected, and thank you very much for the suggestion. Other suggestions for next year's program are also very welcome, and the sooner the better.
Of course. All right, let's have a final question from the floor. Go ahead.
Hi. Thank you very much. It was a great another assembly. We've been here for years now, and every time it's even better. So thank you very much. My name is Tess Rutgers. I'm currently a partner of the We Build consortium, which is focusing on the digital identity and then the digital identity wallets. Obviously, we all know there are already product passports. There are natural person passports. We're trying to align all the member states. This consortium is now focusing on the business wallet, or the enterprise identity wallet. And as you just mentioned, what are could be the topics for next year's agenda? I think this is very important because the wallets might actually bring down the administrative burden. Compliance can sometimes be integrated within the process and the transactions of the wallet principles. And since there are 180 partners, public and private, also 12 business registrations included in this program, I suggest that we make sure that we bridge that gap between, because it's already been mentioned within the consortium that the whole SME layer is not really involved or properly updated on what is going on. And I think it's very important not to work only top down, but make sure that we work bottom up to make it more practical.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there a question, or it was just
no,
a reflection?
Okay, this is typically me. I'm so sorry. In Dutch, you say put in one coin and then she keeps going. So now my face is getting even more red.
Yeah.
More blushing. But the thing is, no, my question is, are you aware of this? Do you agree with this?
Yes, okay.
And what are the things that we should be focusing on from this consortium perspective and the stakeholder community?
And is that aimed for Uti as well?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too.
Sorry, OJ.
Yeah.
Thanks. The consortium, I mean, it's not in our Directorate General that we are talking about, but of course we are very actively following digitalization agenda. And the one thing that we are doing for SMEs, which is very closely related, is what we call SME ID, which is a digital way of putting in as a company the information that is required to qualify as a small business. Because for a lot of support programs, support actions, which are restricted to SMEs, there needs to be proof of being an SME, and we are trying to make it a lot easier for companies to submit this proof, which could then be something that can be stored in an ID wallet or another format. So SME ID is our part of this, and for the rest, I took good note, and my colleagues have also taken note. So thank you very much for your comments.
And thank you very much. And clearly, all input for next year's assembly is welcome. So Sandra, Andreas, and Oti, thank you very much for these closing remarks, and thank you for picking up a few points and takeaways from the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for these speeches and the stimulating exchange. And then I'd just like to say thank you for being a wonderful audience, and have a safe trip back. And now I'd hand over the final word to Mr. André Meyer. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jenne, and ladies and gentlemen, give it away for Nunne Bjerre Christensen, our host for the last 2 days.
Thank you, André.
Tak, Nunne.
Thank
har
you.
været fantastisk.
And du taler så godt dansk. Thank you. You are brilliant at Danish. That was it.
It's just the one phrase I trained for 2 days. We organized the SME Assembly with the Danish presidency of the Council. So what would be more natural than asking Andreas Hauptmann again on stage and join me here, because I have a few questions for you.
But normally it's me that turns to you guys.
Andreas, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you that the SME Assembly and in a way the presidency are almost over?
I think it would stretching it saying that the presidency is almost over, but I think we are on a solid 9. Very good days, but it's also good to have a little bit of normalcy coming back.
Thank you very much. At least he didn't say 11, huh? We've had many meetings, hours of preparation with your team, with you. What's the one piece of advice with hindsight that you would have liked to have before you started the endeavor with us?
It's actually difficult. I think I'm very happy that the conversation has been very ongoing. It has been practical and has been very open on both ends. So there has not been that many surprises. There's always a few practical surprises once you arrange an event at this size. But I would say again, keep your priorities clear, so you know what you want to have as part of the event, and then makes the conversation also with you and your team much easier.
Thank you, Andreas. And there's the last question. If there is equally one piece of advice that you would give Ross Church, the Irish colleague who is taking over, which would that be, this one piece of advice?
Well, I think when we started yesterday, both my own minister, but also Hubert Gams talked about Team Europe here. And I think we all need to take that notion into account, leaving the SME Assembly. But actually planning for the SME Assembly, I think Ross needs to be very much aware of picking out a team SME for him to actually deliver on this event. Because in that case, he can himself lean back and enjoy the fruits of the hard work of everybody in his own team. I think that has been the possibility for me, so I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you, Andreas. Stay with me. Stay with me. Ladies and gentlemen, this conference is an endeavor brought to you by many people. There are those who you might see, and there are many you don't see. Let me start by thanking Sophia Jäger from Andreas' team, and the two Almas, obviously, and the whole team from the Danish presidency, respectively, from the Danish Business Authority. Thank you very much. Tak to you. Thank you. Let me also thank my own team and the colleagues from the Executive Agency for SMEs. And in a way, let me thank my hierarchy for allowing me to do these things. And all the efforts all our efforts would not have led us anywhere without Low Europe, Abbott, Co-Creative Flow, Bill Monday's wonderful badges, you know, the chocolate challenge, no? And Maria Canizai's wonderful and beautiful photos that you can enjoy on Flickr, as well as our local partners, AV Group, and the Forum as the venue. That brings me already to 2026. We'll be in Dublin under Irish presidency, and the SME Assembly in its 14th year will evolve. It will extend to new policy fields and involve the cluster community. It will require careful thinking of of what to keep and what to change. And with that, I would like to invite on stage Ross Church, SME Envoy for Ireland. Ross, join us. And perhaps we could do a photo of the two gentlemen, one worried and one relieved. Thank you. Is it? Before giving you the floor, no, you can already go to the lectern if you want. Before giving you the floor, it remains to me to wish you first a nice last little networking lunch. Enjoy the last moments of networking here at the SME Assembly. And I wish you safe travels. And a particular wish for safe travels goes to the Ukrainian delegation, Slava Ukraini. Thank you for coming and always traveling here with all the hazards that you have. And with that, I hand over to Ross.
Thank you, Andre. Thank you very much for that, and thank you, Andreas. It's a great honor for me personally, as Ireland's SME envoy, to take the reins, to take the baton. Andreas, your words are ringing in my ears. But just to say, on behalf of Ireland and our upcoming presidency this time next year, we're really looking forward to hosting the SME Assembly in Dublin. It can be officially revealed. For those who don't know, Ireland has a very dynamic economy, a vibrant startup community, but like the rest of Europe, SMEs, not just the backbone, but they're the beating heart of our economy. They're so important, and that's why we need to do more. And I think you'll see a lot of continuation of the themes that we've discussed over the last few days will follow through in Dublin next year. Simplification, deepening and having the full extent of the single market, competitiveness, access to finance. So I think just to say thanks to Andreas for his team and the Danish presidency. We've learned a lot. You've been very open. Your minister's words about Team Europe echoed in my head again. There's an Irish phrase, New York go Curla Kayla. which means there's no strength without unity. And I think that's something that we will take forward. So just to say a final thanks to the Commission services, to Andre, to his team. We look forward to working close with you. Congratulations again to the Danish presidency. And I think we now have a video to give a small snippet of what to expect in Dublin and in Ireland next year. So, Gormila Mahogif Galer.